Gallipoli, halt. Gallipoli, outward, out. Gallipoli, rest of your out, reverse.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn them. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
Reason.
Lest we forget.
Gallipoli, hold it.
Right, good morning, members of the Hampton Park Community Association, politicians, Mr. Anthony Byrne, councillors of the City Casey, and citizens of Hampton Park. My name is Barry Rogers from the Dandenong Cranbourne RSL. I've just got a short speech to make for this morning. Pardon if I sound like I slur, but it's through an injury I had and I haven't been drinking, so thank you very much. As we stand here with the light about to break, we wonder what they must have felt as they looked out from their landing ships and thought about what lay before them. They were volunteers. They were young. They were half a world away from their homes, and the balance of their lives lay before them. They would have been anxious, nervous, frightened, yet exhilarated. Many had joined up with a sense of adventure, and now the landing was about to begin. How would it go for them? And how would it go for the men of the Anzac Corps? The first shots would have shattered any illusion that they were about war. They had about war, sorry. One of the men who carried the wounded described it as one of the roughest places on God's earth. Their foe controlled the heights. They soon became acquainted with the suffering and the death. There was nothing glorious about it. It was awful and it was wretched. The Anzacs would never command the heights, which they were the key to the controlling the peninsula. They met well-organised and brilliantly commanded defences. They dug in against impossible odds and held the and held it. When the successful withdrawal, over 8,000 had lost their lives. They were young, they had everything to live for, but they died in the service of their country and their fellow citizens. Before the day in April 1915, few Australians would have known the name Gallipoli. But even now, 102 years later, it is a name we cannot forget. What the men could not have known that fateful day in 1915 was how their deeds would impress themselves on the identity of a nation. The Argus newspaper in December 1915 quoted Major General James Mackay declaring, "This sacred spot in the history of Australia was the Anzac beach and the heights above it." And so we come here today to pay homage. We come here to pay homage to them, the original Anzacs, and to pay homage to the nation and its ideals which they helped create. Until the Anzac story of Australia had been a story of settlement, of colony and federation. Federation provided the constitutional basis for the nation, but Anzac gave that nation the conscience of itself, the knowledge that Australians were distinct and different, and now proud, with their own feats of courage and their own history on the international stage. These are the men of Anzac, sons, brothers, husbands, mates, who had a common purpose, who had the courage in the face of the extremities, who suffered with a generous exception, who had a belief in their cause and a sense of proportion. Despite the privation, despite the carnage, they came to honour and respect their foe. And their foe honoured and respected them. Turkey too found a new sense of nationhood under their new national leader who fought here at Gallipoli. Anzacs would go on to much greater military success in the 1914-18 war in Palestine and in the fields of France. Our servicemen and women would later distinguish themselves in the Pacific and Korea, Vietnam, Iraq and Afghanistan and other conflicts closer to home. Even today, young Australian men and women are serving in theatres of war. Let us remember them. Gallipoli is a place that will forever live in the minds and soul of every Australian. Today, there are many young Australians who go to Gallipoli, like their great-grandfathers and their great-great-grandfathers that have travelled half a world away from their homes to be at Gallipoli out of love and out of country. They want to pay homage. They want to pay homage and take something of the ideals that were estimated there on the day and established on the day in 1915. They want the ideals of the Anzacs to inspire and nourish them again, and they want a legacy never to be forgotten. For Australians, Gallipoli is a sacred place. As long as there are Australians, Gallipoli and whatever happened there will never be forgotten, lest we forget. I apologise for that, it was a bit wet, sorry.
Thank you, Barry. That was very lovely. I'd now like to call Anthony Burns.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to see you all here, ladies and gentlemen, in such large numbers, honouring the service and the sacrifice of those that landed on the shores of Gallipoli 102 years ago, and those that still serve our country today. If we remember those that are serving us in Syria, fighting another enemy of freedom, as we did in 1915. 102 years ago, as Barry said, who would have known that young men barely older than the country that was founded in 1901, would write a new chapter in this country's history but the chapter will be written in their blood, in their lives, and their sacrifice. And Australians came to be known throughout the world during that conflict as resilient, strong, stoical, resourceful. And those attributes are still regarded almost as sacred values today. You talk to other people in different countries, as I do from time to time, about the Australian soldier, and they still, those same Anzac Day values, Anzac soldier values, Anzac spirit, are those reflected in the people who serve our country today. So today is a day of remembrance, of commemoration. We must remember those that fought for us, because we would not have this incredible country today if those people had not made the ultimate sacrifice, not just in the First World War, but in other conflicts, and as I said, still serving us today. So ladies and gentlemen, as I said, even for those that have returned as well, if we spare a thought, we're doing a bit of work with young veterans who have served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and some of them on a day like today are doing it pretty tough. It's a tough day for them. So thank you again to the Hampton Park Progress Association for this incredible Anzac Day ceremony, and I can say nothing more than blessed be forget.
Thank you, Anthony. I'd now like to call Joy Reedy. Joy Reedy is a life member of the Hampton Park Progress Association, and she will lay the first wreath. I'd now like to call Anthony Burns. Thank you. On behalf of the Hampton Park Progress Association, we're going to end today's ceremony with a special story from a special little girl.
Her name is Mackenzie Morrison. She's a great-great-great-granddaughter of Jack Reedy, who lived all his life in Hampton Park, and she's going to say a few words.
Hi. As a young person who appreciates the significance of Anzac Day, I understand how the wars devastated communities and families, but also brought people together. As a direct descendant of the great-great and great-grandfather who fought in the First and Second World Wars respectively, I am honoured to reflect briefly on their experiences. John Thomas, Jack Reedy of Dandenong, joined the AIF 5th Division 29th Battalion in 1915. In July 1916, the 29th Battalion were involved in the worst 24 hours in Australian military history, with over 5,500 casualties. This is the Battle of Fromelles. This is an excerpt of a letter that Jack sent home to the family of his good mate George Spooner, who was missing in action after Fromelles. George and I were firm friends and promised to ride to either one's people should anything happen. Well, the sad part has happened. We had an awful brush with the Germans on the morning of the 20th. I have wondered since that any of us are alive. It was too awful to describe. When things had lulled a bit and we were able to muster, some missing, amongst them George. It is sad to lose all one's mates. I miss poor George. I have lost such a lot of pals. One feels as downhearted as possible, but let us hope for the best. May God keep you to bear the suspense. It was during the Battle of Morlancourt in 1918 that Jack was awarded the Military Medal for Bravery. During the nights of the 28th, 29th and 30th of July, Sergeant Jack Reedy displayed great bravery and devotion to duty after dispatching rations, water and ammunition to the front line under heavy enemy shell fire. Sergeant Reedy showed absolute disregard for personal safety as he removed parties away from the danger zone whilst being shelled with Yellow Cross gas. Jack returned home from the front and married Dolly in 1923, and they began dairy farming at Glen Stewart on Hallam Road, Hampton Park, where Peppercorn Park is today. Despite suffering ill health due to gas attacks in the war, Jack was heavily involved in school committees, Fire Brigade, the Masonic Lodge, the Progress Association and the Voluntary Defence Corps during World War II. During World War II, Jack's future son-in-law, Neville Merrigan, spent 3.5 years as prisoner of war in Changi and worked on the Thai-Burma Railway after being captured in Singapore. The mistreatment of these prisoners had a profound effect on them for the rest of their lives. Neville married Edna on his return and began his own dairy farm on Hallam Road on the site of the now childcare centre. Neville involved himself in community and helped found the Hampton Park Football Club, helped build the tennis courts and scout hall, and served with the Fire Brigade, School Council, Probus, Legacy and the RSL. Anzac Day is about saluting our current protectors in the armed forces. It is about celebrating those that returned home and despite suffering war-inflicted physical and mental conditions, put their heart and souls into their communities in honour and on behalf of the fallen mates that were denied that opportunity. The Kohima epitaph reads, "When you go home, tell them of us and say, for your tomorrow we gave our today, lest we forget."
Thank you very much. That concludes our service for today. Thank you for everyone attending. Now, if you'd like to join us inside for refreshments and warming up and hot coffee, please come inside, lest we forget.
Yeah.